So we're on week 6 now, opening the heart. Reb Nachman teaches, speech has a great power to awaken a person's spirituality. Sometimes a person thinks that he has no heart and cannot reach a meditative state. Nevertheless, if he expresses himself with many words of awakening, supplication, and prayer, this speech itself will bring a revelation, an awakening of his meditative powers and his soul. This is the meaning of the verse, "My soul came forth when he spoke," from the Song of Solomon. Now, our method of meditation differs in one very explicit way from what you learn in most meditative contexts. In just about all Asian meditative traditions, you're taught to meditate silently, even though you may be internally or subaudibly speaking a mantra or a prayer. Generally speaking, you are meant to remain still and quiet. And the degree to which you speak at all, internally or subaudibly, it is meant to induce a state of stillness in the soul. I don't think that Reb Nachman would disagree with that, and certainly the method of green meditation does not discount that sort of quietude, but that is not the end. Green meditation is conversational with the self, with the heart, with other species, and with the world. So we are always in communication as long as we are alive. From the moment we are born and take our first breath and cry out, and until the very, very last moment we are alive, we are in conversation. Our conversation with God is basically a conversation with the world and with ourselves. And what we're taught is to open that channel of communication and maintain that open channel throughout the 24 hours of the day. This is basically how to do that. Begin when you wake up in the morning. All it requires is that before you put your feet on the floor, first thing in the morning, you check in, you ask yourself, what am I feeling? Where am I? What is my point of connection to this day and to the world and to myself? And basically to my heart. Reb Nachman talks about opening the heart. We begin the day by opening the heart and making sure that that channel is somewhat open to begin the day before we put our feet on the floor. Once our feet go on the floor, there are ruts. There are ruts leading off in every possible direction. And there is very little chance that before we have taken 4 or 5 steps that we will not be walking at least with one foot in one of those ruts. We don't know which particular rut we're going to fall into, like a ball in a groove, or where it's going to jump from one groove to another. All we know is that today is likely to be more of the same. Green meditation teaches us that one day does not have to be exactly like the same. And we begin with that point of connection, saying that I am ready. I am open. My heart is open. My heart is open to a number of possibilities for today. My heart is open to life, basically. So that's the beginning of the day. The middle of the day, when the sun is high in the sky, that's the world of light. We begin the day with a kind of a half-light of dawn, where things are not yet fully unfolded or perfectly clear. By the time we get midway through the day, certain things have become quite obvious. Like, it's pretty obvious what kind of day we're having or we're going to have, right? Have certain tasks we have to engage in, certain kind of work, responsibilities, whatever. So the sun's shining down, it's straight above our heads, it's illuminating pretty much everything around us. We know what we're going to know. We know what we're going to know, but we still maintain within us that bit of uncertainty that we began the day with, that openness of heart. that allows for us to negotiate a slightly different path through the remainder of the day. It's almost as if we were learning to chart our lives by the stars in broad daylight. We are ruled by what we know. Green meditation teaches us to maintain a place of not knowing through the daylit hours of the day. At dusk, we embrace that not knowing. We embrace that twilight numinous state of being that is ours. It's always ours. Some people call it God. Some people say Buddha. Some people call it a higher power or an other power. People learn to lean into that and to lean back against it and to trust it and to entrust certain aspects of their lives to that power for safekeeping and for guidance and for inspiration. At dusk, we allow ourselves to settle into that place more and more in our meditation and our prayer. And then as the darkness comes upon us, we gradually learn to do without quite so much light. Now, of course, I've recommended that all of us try to get by with a little less artificial lighting. Getting back just briefly to this idea of speaking. I'm sure all of us know somebody who keeps everything pent up inside, who suffers a great deal of stress, develops various kinds of somatic problems or illnesses because of it. Person who can't let go, can't say what's on their mind, who can't speak their heart, can't get what they need in life because they can't tell other people what they want. Sometimes can't get what they need because they can't tell themselves what they want. It all comes from isolation. Human beings do not deal well with isolation. That which we call a self is simply a isolating function of a human being. There's me, there's you, there's this, there's that. In order to break down those dichotomies and those boundaries, what the Heart Sutra calls the hindrances in the mind, or walls, literally walls in the mind. In order to break down those walls and to pierce them, there's really only one thing that truly works, and that is speech. Speech. Reb Nachman taught his disciples to go out into the middle of the night and to speak aloud to God in nature in the middle of the night. Taught them to wander out into a field. One word about God in terms of green meditation. We do not have a singular understanding of what that word means, like 12-step groups who in their great wisdom have left that up to an individual conscience. We do the same way. We do it the same way. We arrived at it because we studied every religion at one time or another and did practices from every major religious tradition in this group. And finally arrived at the conclusion that we could not call this power beyond the self, which gives rise to life, sustains life, and into which life is constantly being poured back in, we could not call it by a single name. We could not limit it by a single name, although we could take up any name that felt right to us at any moment and embrace that name as an expression of our desire to be whole and our desire to be held.